All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Life Between the Six with Cody Cropper. As always, your host, Brandon. We've got a guest, Alex Bono, joining us. We could say again, but none of you know that. So anyways, Alex, what's going on?
Oh, not much. You expect that when you make an appearance that, the hosts at least have the decency to tell you they're not going to release the show that you did 2 years ago. But now, I know, and I've been wondering where it is. I know that it's just sitting in the archives, and maybe one day it'll see the light of day. Maybe one day it will. Who knows?
Maybe one day it will. We don't know.
Yeah.
Well, firmly supplanting the show is Life Between the Sticks with another goalkeeper. Excited to have you on, obviously, with DC this season. So, new team, new change for you. What is it like, though, having a celebrity manager, Mr. Rooney, the gaffer?
It's I still haven't gotten used to saying gaffer, and I don't think I ever will. So I just call him Wayne. But it's crazy, like the
Mr. Wayne,
like, gaffer wants this, and he's like standing right there, and you're like, why are you referring to him as like a title when he's sitting right here? And it's just like a very like strange way of conversing and talking to people. I don't know. So I just call him Wayne. But it is nice to have the biggest personality in your team be the coach. It actually takes off some of the pressure that players, I think, might face, because he knows the game so well. He has so many experiences in the game at the highest level that when you get to learn from a guy like him day in and day out, and like when we show up to the hotels and, there's people waiting at the steps to get your coach's signature, you're like, this is a bit different. But it's kind of nice because it kind of takes some of the focus off of players and lets us just get down to business and do what we're asked to do.
Yeah,
I think that's a really good point that not a lot of MLS fans or maybe players in MLS would have experienced, having played on teams where a lot of players are bigger than the managers. And in Europe, that's, more common than not. Like when I played at Southampton, Pochettino was a bigger name than any player that we had on the team, or
Right.
Roy Keane was the bigger name than any player on the team. And it's like, these guys have been there and done it, and they have their own credibility, and they take the pressure off of you, right? It's not really a thing. And I think that's a really cool point you made.
It's not intentionally. They take the spotlight, not like an ego intentional thing. It's a natural thing because of their careers and because of what they've experienced and what they've achieved. And when you sit back and think about it, it's kind of nice that you get to experience learning from someone who's done it at the highest level. And at the same time, they on a daily basis get all the attention. They are getting the headlines, and you're okay with that, because when the players do something to deserve the headlines, then you get it. But it takes some of the pressure off of being a player, some of the pressure off of the high stress situations, because you know that your coach has done it. And at the same time, he's great about protecting us and speaking up in the media and being a manager who takes the criticism and who doesn't, throw his guys in the line of fire. So it's been good. He's a really great coach. I'm really happy to be here, and I am learning every day and enjoying the experience with him.
Is he still just like cherry pick goalkeepers off in like shooting drills?
He hops in them once in a while, and he's still got it. He's definitely still got it. So
I can see him like out there with the T90 lasers, the old school bright yellows.
He wears he just wears Copas now. It's like the weirdest thing. And you think that he'd be this angry, grumpy guy, because like when he played, you're like, is this guy ever happy? Like, does he smile?
He always
he scores
looked
a goal
angry,
and it looks like he's still angry.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, you just scored. But he's actually like super soft spoken, like really personable. Really cares about like what you have to say, and will pull you and just have a chat about your family and all this stuff. And you're like, this is so strange, because I thought you were just like a grumpy, angry former player, and you're like one of the nicest people. So
love it.
Yeah,
that's some cool insight. That's cool insight, because I would have had the same perception that you just kind of described as like grumpy former player. I don't know, like misses playing, but is kind of past it and is just angry with the world. But
he's so even keel. Like he has no.
That's fantastic.
He's the opposite.
You're like, this guy like misses a chance in a game, and he might just like it looks like he's just seeing red. He might just go off and kick someone, you know? And now it's like he's a manager and he has no control over like what's happening on the field. And he's just like, even keel, just chill, just watches.
That's crazy.
Just analyzes. It's so weird. So
interesting.
Different.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, good self-awareness for him, you know, because I'm sure everyone's probably walking on pins and needles, and he kind of takes that away, which is good for him. So, look, I think the league's better for having him. You know, the way he's building his project there in DC United, assembling you guys and the right types of people, and he's very clear about what he wanted from people, and that he wasn't going to sign vanity signings. They needed to be bought in. So, I'm sure that just helps with the unity of the locker room a lot.
100%.
All right. Well, should we chat a little MLS, gentlemen? We are officially
let's do it.
Done with I don't even know what week was this. Match week 5 already?
Match week 6.
6?
Yeah.
Well,
sure?
I mean, Cody,
I think so.
There's only yeah, okay, he's right. Damn it. 6 games have been played.
Okay.
He's right.
Okay.
It doesn't seem like it. But some high level stuff on the East. Cincinnati first. They have now leapt up there. Atlanta second, New England Revolution third, Columbus fourth. Western Conference, St. Louis, even though they have their first loss, still in first, with Seattle second, LAFC third, and Minnesota United fourth. So again, just kind of set the stage there. Who's at the top? So we're going to start with Cincinnati versus Miami. When you go to the top of the standings in the East, we're going to start with you there. They are, from a points perspective, the second best team in the league. Cody, obviously, we've been watching Cincy a little bit this season. They were pretty much projected by everybody to be in and amongst the top of the East. They're doing the business. They got 4 wins, no losses, 2 draws, and getting the result against Miami, which I hate to say it, I'm like less and less excited by Miami every week.
Yeah. I don't know. They, like you said, they started off kind of hot. They were drawing some attention, and they've just gotten progressively worse, more stale week to week. I don't know what you think, Alex, but
yeah, no, I agree. I think that I mean, they came out and who they beat? Philly, and obviously Philly's, you know, that team in the East that everyone thinks was just going to kind of stay the powerhouse that they were last year, and they've kind of, you know, they've struggled a bit in the beginning of the season as well. Obviously, Andre got hurt, which is not the reason that they're not, you know, winning all their games, but you know, so they'll take some time to figure it out, but I think Philly will be fine. But Miami went in and beat Philly in one of the first couple games, and everyone's like, wow, is this Miami team for real? And then just slowly they've, you know, I don't know what their last couple games are, but
they lost to Chicago in the dying minutes last week.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Toronto beat them 2-0, and then they lost to NYCFC after winning their first 2-0. So it's literally been
4 straight losses.
Yeah. And and they scored 2 goals against Chicago, but they've scored 2 and 4 as well.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, in this game, they conceded a late set piece goal in the first half. And how many times have I discussed this in the first 6 weeks, Brandon, where I've said you cannot switch off in the first 5 minutes of a half and the final 5 minutes of a half, because teams will punish you. And Miami have done it several times, and they get punished by a team that not only has been better than them, but exploited the mismatch on the near post with DeAndre Yedlin there. And it just kind of, you know, I have so many great things to say about Dre, but in this game, I think the last 2 weeks, I think he struggled.
To be fair, the whole team is struggling, right? You know, kind of top to bottom. And
I shouldn't single him out, but you're right.
Well,
you're right.
It happens because he's the guy in the highlight, right, that everybody sees. So he's
wearing the captain's armband,
which he is. You know, it's tough in him. But look, Cincinnati looked solid top to bottom, like especially when you kind of look at their passing networks and just like their average team shape. They're a cohesive unit. They're playing the back 3. They've got the 2 guys in the middle that just kind of run everything. Their wing backs push up high with 3 in attack. It just, they're well drilled. Was it Noonan is the manager there, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Chris
So
Albright is the general manager and Pat Noonan's the head coach.
So I was going to ask this. Do you guys, I don't know, Alex, maybe, do you feel like an advantage is having played in the MLS? There's so many former players that seem to be doing pretty well in the MLS, but then there's also some that have tried it and failed miserably. But do you think it's an advantage to be a coach having played in the league? Because it's such a unique league.
It is. And there are certain things that you pick up as a player in this league that you don't pick up in other leagues. And of course, things that you gain by playing in other leagues that you don't experience here. But in terms of coaching in MLS, I do think that playing helps. But also with Chris and Pat, they spent a ton of time in Philly, a lot of years. They spent so many years there learning that system, learning, Philly's a well-run club. They do things the right way. They take care of the players. They have a good scouting department. They always seem to find talent and bring them into the league. So from that perspective, I think more so than players having played in the league and then going on to coach in the league, that the time that they've spent around the league and around a club that has had relative success and is well run, I think that really helps them. They take it somewhere else where there are resources, where there's a willingness to be a good team and do things the right way. And you see what happens when you have smart guys who have been around the league, have learned the system, have learned how things go, and bring it to a team that's willing to make it happen. And that's what's happened here for me.
Yeah, I would agree. Having played there during the 2021 season, which was the year before Albright and Noonan came in, it was a dumpster fire from top to bottom. They'd had, I think, three general managers or two general managers and three head coaches over a 3-year span. They were the worst team in the league all 3 years. And it speaks volumes to Pat Noonan and to Chris Albright of what they've been able to accomplish in less than 18 months there, because they've come in, like Alex said, from an organization that has had relative success. They learned over those years that they were there, and they brought what they learned to Cincinnati. They went out and signed guys that they knew could get the job done and created an environment and a culture in which the players who were already there and the new players that they were bringing in could succeed. And you've not only seen that success on the field, but you've seen it off the field as well, because they are a team. They are a unit. They do things together off the field. They do things together on the field. And that's what winning is about.
Can you give an example of something that they would have done? I mean, because there's so many teams in League 29 now. Like you said, you were there at Cincy. You said it was top to bottom broken. Like, what is something maybe that having a solid managerial core that is aligned with the coaching staff, what does that do for you guys as players? Like, how is that tangible?
Alex?
Yeah, I think for me, when it comes to that, you can see, not by them telling you, but so it's not like a direct thing, but you can see the vision that the club has, and you can see it because, like you say, it aligns with the coaching staff, it aligns with the front office, and that translates to on-field results. When you have the players that you want to play the system that you want, to play the style of play that you want, and so all those things, when you have them and you have a front office that's willing to give the manager the players that he wants and the resources that he needs to get those players. And on top of that, it's the way the players are treated at the facility, the stadium, and the way that they bring the crowd out, how supportive the crowd is. When you have a club that, in this league, when you have a club where all of that is aligned, you see tremendous success. So look right now at Galaxy. They started the season, I think they were 3 points in 5 games. 3 points in 5 games, 0 wins, 2 losses, three ties. So before the season, you saw that the fans were going to boycott. They weren't going to go to the games. They came out and they say, we don't agree with the GM and he disrespects the fans. And so we're going to boycott going to games. And that's because They don't like the way that the front office is running the team. They don't like the way that the coach is coaching the team. They don't like the way the players are performing on the field. They think that they deserve better or whatever. And all this stuff trickles into what goes on a daily basis on the training field, in the stadium, on the weekend at games. And so you see this organization that is in a bit of turmoil, all because of there's a miscommunication. There's disagreements between the way that the club should be run or who's in charge of running the club. And that, as much as we like to say that the fans don't make those decisions, it seeps into what happens on a daily basis, how well-oiled or not well-oiled the machine is running.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's fair. Cody, I did want to ask you about your boy, Brandon Vasquez, MLS All-Star last season, 1 goal in 6 games. Are we concerned about him? He's just figuring it out. I mean, because the team's obviously winning, but he's only got 1 goal.
Yeah, team's winning. I think a lot of their play is going through him at some stage, whether it's him checking into the midfield and laying the ball off, whether it's him holding the ball up, maybe drawing a foul to release the pressure from the back 4. That said, he's not been as good in front of goal as he was last year. He is getting into the right positions, and there was 1 or 2 opportunities in this game that he did miss. I believe there was a set piece later in the game that he kind of had a header from 6 yards out and just missed the frame of goal. I'm not too concerned about it. I think it'll fall into place as the season goes on. However, I don't think he's going to be as clinical or as much of an impact as he was last year. I think he had a hell of a season last year, and I think it's going to be difficult for him to replicate that. However, I do think that he deserves the attention that he's drawing from overseas.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll have to see. Plenty of time for him to turn around, especially as they're flying. I will definitely be getting rid of this in exchange for the FC Cincy top you gave me, because I'm happy to bandwagon. No problems whatsoever. I don't have
there you
a team.
go.
Hey, speaking of coaches that have experience playing in the MLS, Real Salt Lake, not great, versus Columbus, pretty good, 4-0 to the Crew.
Yeah.
Mastroeni's side. As much as we talked about how he's a defensive guy, they're doing anything but defending this season. Columbus also playing a hot hand. I think this is 2 games in a row that they've scored 4 goals, conceded none, after getting absolutely hammered.
Correct.
On their side as well. So a bit of spirit and fight from Columbus. I don't know what gets you guys excited about Columbus right now.
We went there a few weeks ago and we played them, and they're a good team. They've got difference makers everywhere. I think they have 2 of the best midfield players in the league, in Zell Ryan and Darlington Nagbe. I don't think that anyone, if you don't think that Darlington Nagbe is in that discussion, then I don't think that you've watched enough of Darlington Nagbe, because he's fantastic. I mean,
I would agree. He's one of the most underrated players in this league.
It looks like he's coasting. He never really breaks first gear, yet he makes all the difference in the game. Does he sprint? You feel like he's just kind of coasting around, and then all of a sudden he's just always in the right spot. He never loses the ball. He always makes a key pass, and he keeps that team. I mean, he is their engine. Zell Ryan's just an incredible player. The way he's able to work with Cucho, the striker, and they create for each other incredible opportunities, and they are ruthless. Zell Ryan is ruthless. So when you've got players like that can make the difference, they just brought in Wilfred Nancy from Montreal, the coach last year, that brought them so much success. So now he's there. He's really got them humming in a good way, and they could be a force to be reckoned with.
And I don't think Cucho, isn't he out injured right now? Aiden Morris?
Yeah, he is.
He's the other one in the middle of the field scoring. Like, he's slotted in so well as too, Cody. So they're just an absolute nightmare from a form standpoint.
They are a well-oiled machine right now. And
a new coach. How did they get him to settle so quickly?
It's a great question. I think the most interesting aspect of this team is the interchangeable front three, well, or arguable front four that they have in Zelarayan, Matan, Hernandez, and or Ramirez, because Ramirez can step in for Cucho Hernandez. Vice versa, Zelarayan comes out of midfield, Matan off the left or the right, whichever it might be. These four are clinical and they're ruthless and they score goals. That said, you have to add in Aiden Morris right now into that midfield, because with the attention from the Zelarayan demands and that Nagby demands, Morris is creating a name for himself. And he's got 3 goals in 2 games and is causing a lot of teams issues.
Yep. No, he can make it happen for sure. He's a really good young player, a lot of quality in the ball, does a lot of work in that midfield, covers a lot of ground for them defensively. And he's a great piece that adds on to their stars, quote unquote stars in midfield.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think he deserves, like, from my perspective, is he a name that deserves to be in the men's national team conversation? Because that's the way that they're looking, right? They want youth to be, they want young players to be brought into the national team to get the experience now ahead of the World Cup. Does he deserve to be in the picture? What do you think?
Listen, I think that whenever you're talking about a player and do they deserve to be called into the national team, I think it's based on one thing and one thing only. Do they deserve to be called in? It's based on your club performances. If you are standing out in your club in a position that the coach feels that you can come in and possibly make a difference or add to the roster, then you should get an opportunity. And then getting called into a camp is that reward for playing well with your club team. Once you're there, it's on you based on your performance all camp to earn that next callback. If you get a chance to play in a game, to play well in that game to earn your next callback. And for me, when you're talking about national team call-ups, that's what it should be based on. Like, for me, Brandon Vasquez should have been at the World Cup. Like, we don't need to go back.
100% agree with you.
We don't need to go back 6 months and talk about this, but like, you play well at your club. Okay, you deserve to be in a position of need, by the way, for the national team. You deserve to be called into a camp. When you get called into a camp, and the fact that Berhalter just kind of said, well, you know, like next cycle is kind of like, that's the one we're looking at for you. It's like, no, he's hot now. Use the hot players now. And so, it's the same thing with Aiden Morris. Do I think he deserves to be called up? Yes. And then you see how he does in camp and see if he sticks.
Yeah, I mean, agree. Especially right now.
This is the fascinating thing with national teams is that is the outlook that it should be, is the players that deserve to be there, the best players for your country should be in the next camp. However, you know how it is, Alex. Coaches have their favorites. They continue to call them in whether they're hot or not, and they play because they're favorites. And you and I have been there in terms of, like, we've been on a hot streak. We've been playing well. And you maybe get put on what do they call it? Like reserve for the national team, and you're like, well, great, really appreciate that. Really appreciate that email.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
I appreciate you letting me know that I get called in. Yeah, awesome. And it's like you've been outperforming the goalkeeper that will start that game in that camp, and you're like, oh, awesome. Thanks, bud.
Yeah. So unfortunately, that's a reality that I think all national teams probably face.
For sure.
You know, there are guys that maybe deserve to be there that aren't. There are guys who are there every camp that play a lot of minutes that maybe shouldn't. But at the end of the day, this is it's kind of what you sign up for.
Yeah. When you get so few opportunities to prove yourself in the national team camp, the second you're reliable, you're in, because they just need to know that there's people that they can rely on. To your point, it's hard to take risks and gambles and things. On the other side of this, a team, McMath looked to have been dropped from what I can tell. 17-year-old Gavin Beavers comes in and gets absolutely shellacked. Unlucky, really unlucky for him. But thoughts on, I don't know if McMath had a knock, again, if you guys are paying attention, but the fact of the matter is a 17-year-old American goalkeeper went in and gave up 4. I watched the highlights, like not a lot he could have done on some of them. I think one, he maybe had a bad rebound, but he's 17. Holy shit.
Yeah. I mean, good on the kid for earning the opportunity. However, I think it's one of those situations, and I can speak for myself, and I'm sure I can speak for Alex in this, is we've both been there where you've conceded, say you're in Zach's shoes and you've conceded 9 goals in 5 games, and you get dropped because the manager goes, well, we need to change. And you're the easy out, but we're going to change. And then they concede 4 again. Now what happens? It's one of those things where if you're Zach, you're kind of sitting on the sideline laughing at it because it's such a funny situation to be blamed for 9 goals or for the losing streak or whatever it is. And then for the same thing to just happen again.
Yeah, I think whenever you talk about a goalkeeper change, I think it's a move that coaches do to try and bring some energy and change something in the team. And
100%.
In this situation, I mean, I know Zach pretty well, and I think he's a really good goalkeeper, and I don't think that he's not the problem with this team. And I think that everyone knows that.
No.
I think that even the coach knows that. And at a certain point, it's unfortunate that we say, well, we need a spark. Or maybe it comes from the front office that says, hey, we got this young kid that we really like, and he's been training well. Or you tell us that he's been training well, and he deserves an opportunity to try something. And now when things aren't going well is the time for you to try and make that and try and, create that spark that turns your team around, just try and get a result, And so, obviously I feel bad for the kid coming in your first MLS game. It's funny because the goalkeeper who played for Columbus, his first MLS game, they lost. It was first game of the season this year. They got crushed and he ate like 5 or 4 or 5, And so it's funny, the first game of the season, this goalkeeper gets 4 or 5 hung on him. And then he's back in that while Room is on international duty to see this kid, 17-year-old, get his first game, and they hang 4 on Salt Lake. So kind of weird how the game works that way.
I don't know. There's a few young goalkeepers in the league this season. Obviously, Brady at Chicago's is kind of the one playing week in, week out as a 19-year-old. But you've got a couple 21-year-olds, Sarah and Montreal and Postcamp at KC. So we've definitely, to your point, Alex, seen some coaches kind of flip it up. I mean, fire, not really, because, Sloanina was there last season. But for KC and Vermees, it clearly is something that he's trying to change stylistically about the team. So interesting stuff here, but Mastroianni needs to keep tinkering because whatever it is, isn't it a little bit unlucky? Columbus, I mean, they're cooking. As I look at like the stats from top to bottom, they've done well. They definitely turned around a slow start for them. We'll have to see where they continue to go. Another one, Toronto 2, Charlotte 2. A bit of an interesting result. Alex, obviously, you know Toronto really well. I think everyone's looking at them with the amount of money that they've spent recently and expecting the results. It just hasn't really come, but Bernadeschi and Bradley getting the goals for Toronto and Bender and Joswiak for Charlotte, who Charlotte have been down towards the bottom of most things. I mean, they're 14th in the East, with a -5 goal difference. They've only won 1 game. So I think the inconsistency from Toronto, I think, is kind of surprising us with a lot of the at least attacking star power. So I don't know, I guess thoughts on Toronto?
Yeah. I obviously spent a lot of time there. And so a lot of my friends are still there on that team, and I'm always rooting for them to do well. I hope that they can turn it around as the organization and become that team that they expect to be. But this is, up 2 goals, 2 set pieces, 2 corner kicks in a windy, cold night down on Lakeshore at the stadium. So, but to be up 2-0 and at home, and then to finish 2-2 draw. I'm sure that, I don't need to have any inside sources so that they're disappointed with that result, and feel like they deserve more and felt like they gave up 2 points there. But, it's been a bit of a slow start for them. They got a win at home against Miami a couple weeks ago. Went on the road to San Jose last week and got a 0-0 draw, which is great for the defensive confidence of the team, who's given up a decent amount of goals this year so far. But yeah, I think they'd probably be a bit upset with being up 2 goals and having to take a point after. Yeah,
I think it's at least the second time this season, Cody, that they kind of gave up an equalizer in a very frustrating fashion. And again, we're just kind of talking about this one 2-2 surprise also from Charlotte. And kind of talked about this again, a recurring theme. Anybody can beat or draw anyone every kind of single week, which is just part of like the craziness of this league. But what were kind of your thoughts when you saw Toronto ended up giving up 2 goals late to Charlotte?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It caught me off guard because I saw the result at halftime. Obviously, Toronto's up 2-0. And I checked the scores back at the end of the games, at the end of that, I guess, kickoff time, and saw 2-2. And I was completely caught off guard because looking at the players that are under contract at Toronto, you would think have the experience to know how to close a game out being 2-0 up at half. You would think that they have the ability to mitigate and manage 45 minutes with not only the experience, but the firepower, the defensive understanding, the ability to just organize and mitigate whatever a team has to throw at them. And unfortunately, right now it's just not clicking. And I don't know I don't know if it's the management. I don't know if it's the on-field relationships not, just not being there. But in my eyes, it's something that is not click. There's something not clicking.
I would say Toronto's they've had a tough run to the beginning of the season. I mean, obviously losing the crazy game against DC, Alex, as you were, there, that one was all electric. But then they caught Atlanta at a tough time, right? Away, and they drew 1-1, which now in hindsight, you're like, that's actually a pretty good result. Mm-hmm. Tying Columbus when Columbus is still figuring out, beating Miami, drawing San Jose, probably not great for them. And then this Charlotte result, but then they have to turn and play Nashville away and Atlanta at home, and then Philadelphia, which until like Philly's wobble recently, you were like, that might actually be the toughest start of anyone's run to the season. So I do have a little bit of empathy for them and hope that maybe once they can get to NYCFC at the end of April, the run might open up a little bit for them because, like I said, having to play Atlanta right now twice in 2 months, again, you will never be able to get me to understand the MLS schedule and why the hell it is the way it is. It's a rough ride.
Yeah, I think you can look at it 2 ways. I think that they've caught some. I mean, you catch Columbus, one of their games, and you catch Miami, who started out really hot, and has to come up to Toronto when it's still freezing, and they go cold, pun intended, and you beat Miami at home. So you catch them at a good time. Same thing with Columbus. You catch them when it's really cold out, and you're not as mobile. You're not as dynamic when it's that cold. Like Toronto, early season cold, it changes the game. It changes games. Just like that summer game in Dallas in the middle of the heat of the day, it changes the game. It doesn't have the same flow as a game that's played in more normal conditions. So I think that they've caught some teams actually in good spots that are favorable for them to be able to have a chance to get results here, and they haven't quite done it. Like you get Charlotte 1 week is amazing, and 1 week they're they look like they need a lot of work, and then it's here, tale of 2 halves. First half, it looks like they need a lot of work.
Yep.
Second half, they come and they make it a 2-2 game. So,
Agreed.
I think that Toronto will figure it out. I think that they'll get going. Momentum in this league is crazy. One win turns into 2, turns into 3, turns into 5, really quickly. And so, if you can just kind of push it and make 1 or 2 of those happen, you never know what could, how far it could go.
Let's just say maybe Toronto's looking ahead to see when they play Montreal at this point, the way things are going.
Or when
2
they get
weeks,
Insigne
DC.
back.
We play Montreal in 2 weeks. But who's
Yeah.
There you go.
All right. Next one up, league darling St. Louis City SC falling to Minnesota United, who like to remind everybody that they are undefeated, which I'm not saying they're not, but, a couple draws in there. St. Louis were on fire. They couldn't do anything wrong, Cody. They were scoring goals for fun. As I'd pulled up, they were outperforming their XG an unbelievable amount. I think they had created 8 XG and scored 12. We were thinking that they were going to cruise this one and they wouldn't get their first real test until I think they were playing Seattle next. But
Yep.
They looked normal, right? It just, things didn't go for them. They looked frustrated, picked up a bunch of yellow cards, just couldn't seem to kind of have all the opportunities. They had unbelievable amount of shots in the box, and it just, I think all the magic kind of dried up. Not like, hey, we should now throw in the towel and quit on St. Louis, but it was bound to happen at some point. And this was the one.
Yeah. And look, from what I saw of this game, St. Louis looked like they were the better team for 80 minutes. They created a lot of chances, but they simply were they simply were not as clinical as they have been in front of goal as the first 5 games. They missed the target. I think they hit the crossbar once. Dane made a few good saves. That said, Minnesota did a fantastic job of absorbing and mitigating the pressure that St. Louis applied and taking advantage of their 1 or 2 clear-cut chances. And it's, at the end of the day, as Alex knows, it's the team that takes advantage of that one chance that will win games like this.
100%. And I think that you said it, Cody, that it's possible that sometimes your luck just runs dry, that you're not as clinical as you have been. To be fair, they had a couple of goals where it was literally a pass back from a center back to a goalkeeper directly to their striker, And so those breaks, they always will tell you that the breaks even out. You're not going to get every single bounce for a whole season. Towards the end of the season, they might give up a couple easy goals, and that kind of evens out that breaks line, like they get a couple good breaks early. To be fair, they're already winning by multiple goals, so it doesn't really change the result of the game, but it changes their stats. It changes that expected goals and how many goals they're scoring and all this stuff. And so this is one of those games where, do I think watching the extended highlights that St. Louis was a better team? Yes. But at the end of the day, that's why you go and play the game. And so credit to Minnesota, go into a tough environment, new team that's been on fire, and you get 3 points. Okay, and they'll see him on the return leg in Minnesota, and we'll see. I think Minnesota. Exactly. I think Minnesota is outperforming what they are.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Especially
100%.
Obviously without Reynoso, they're still trying to figure out their identity. Yeah. But to your point about St. Louis, 16 shots, 11 off target, and then you got another 2 that are blocked. They only got 3 through. That's underperforming for them big time. But can we talk about the goal, guys? You remember this penalty where St. Louis had defender 1? The first defender had won the ball, but the second defender was a step late and tackled the Minnesota United player off the ball, and they got a penalty.
He almost tackled his own player off the ball.
Correct.
That's the thing. That's how late he was.
So thoughts, counterpoint, Minnesota United was never going to get there. St. Louis had possession of the ball, but you can't go whack somebody in the box. Yeah. I honestly was expecting a no call on that.
because the ball was so far gone. But I don't know. I mean, you can't go through players like that, and you can't create contact that late after the ball's gone and not expect the referee to blow his whistle.
It's a weird one because you're right. I mean, the ball is gone. St. Louis is in possession of the ball, and still the tackle comes through, and it is so late that it really doesn't make sense, And so, is there an alternate world where a referee looks at that on VAR and says, "It's so strange because it's a foul, but it's technically it's like off the ball, even like they're not even challenging for a ball." So I'm not sure. It got called. Obviously, look at everything, and it is what it is. Move on. It's not something that's so egregious that I'm like, oh, this can't.
No,
there's no way that should have been a penalty.
Yeah.
This game was scrappy, by the way.
I agree.
It was.
This game was scrappy.
It was.
And maybe that's what Minnesota went out to do to disrupt St. Louis, right? Because they're so free flowing and they were on cloud nine and they came in, they roughed them up through some tackles, good amount of, cautions in this one. I am looking on the MLS site at the feed and I swear to God, it says 78th minute penalty goal. Is there a more American way to say that a goal went in? I mean, what are we doing here? They gave him a caution. They said it was for a bad foul. So, I get it. Fantastic. I suppose. It was a little bit funny. Anyway, Joao Klaus.
I think you touch on the fact that Minnesota really went out there to just break the game up.
Yeah.
That's all you have to do. Frustrate a team that's free flowing and you break their rhythm. And I think that they did that extremely well.
Yeah.
Not to double check. I think Minnesota changed their shape too. They're in a 4-4-2 right now. Usually Will is a deep lying behind two other midfielders in front of him. So I wonder if that was a tactical change that they made as well going into this one. Yeah, usually they're in a 4-2-3-1, but they did play 4-4-2 last one. So anyways, Minnesota's still trying to figure out their identity. But look, I think St. Louis City at the beginning of the season goes, hey, we'll take an ugly loss to Minnesota if we can win our first 6 or win our first 5 and essentially be at 15 points and have the most points in the league. Sound good?
For sure. For sure.
Without
Bite your hand off. Bite your hand off.
Yeah.
And doing it in a free flowing, fun way that captured the entire city.
Yeah. Not only the entire city, the entire league.
Yeah.
Everybody
with them.
Would you guys tune in to see what they did after like their first 2 games just because you were surprised it was going so well for them? Like, were you guys just kind of drawn in because they are a first team or inaugural season team? For sure.
I think that you always want to see how these teams do. And for me, when there's a new team, it's hard to hate on them because you have no experiences playing against them. You have no experiences watching them. You don't know any of the players. Or maybe you do. There's a guy that you played against or from a different team that's moved there. But you really kind of root for those teams. You root for the teams you want them to come into the league and have an easy, not an easy, but you want them to assimilate well in the league because eventually they'll be 5 years in, 7 years in, and you hope that it's not a bad decision for the league to have said, hey, we'll put an expansion team in St. Louis. So far, first 5 games in terms of the stadium, in terms of the team, the way that they're playing, the style that they play, it all seems to be, a good decision. So I'm excited to see them doing well, and I hope they can keep it going.
Yeah. Well, again, I don't think this is so bad that you're like, erase everything that's happened. You guys are done for. We'll see what happens. But, like I did say that they're going to have to figure it out because I think they have, I'm going to double check this, Seattle away next. Come on. The MLS website should be so much easier to navigate, but it's not. Yeah, they got to play Seattle away at the late kickoff. So we'll see how they do. And then they're back home against Cincinnati. So it's gonna be a tough little back-to-back run for them. So I think we'll probably get a really good test of how they handle a couple of a veteran team in Seattle and then a very organized and high flying team in Cincy. So I'm excited.
Yeah.
All right. Last one.
It'll be a good test.
Yeah, for sure. Last one of the day, gentlemen. The Canadian rivalry no one cares about. Or is this the big one? What do you guys think, having both played in Canada? What is the big Canadian rivalry up there?
There's only one, and it's Toronto-Montreal. The West Coast is the West Coast. It's isolated, especially that Pacific Northwest. It's a bit weird up there. And so when it comes to a rivalry, part of a rivalry for me is actual location and distance between teams. So proximity from that rival team. And so in terms of that, I think the only answer is Toronto-Montreal.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think you bring a great point of rivalry has to do with proximity. I think that makes sense. I think that aligns.
I think that's how rivalries in any sports are, and it's like, the old rivalries is like Celtics and the Lakers. And it's like, because they were both so head and shoulders above the best teams back in the day when they were playing each other every year in the finals. Now it's like, it's not a rivalry. No one really cares about that now, because they're too far apart. There's not an actual cultural dislike. Right. So I can tell you that.
And you look at soccer,
Toronto and Montreal.
Yeah. You look at soccer and you look in Europe and it's Barcelona, Real Madrid, Liverpool, Everton, Liverpool, Man United, Chelsea, and who? Brandon?
You tell me. Anyone in North London, I suppose. Right now, it's more like fucking Brentford and Crystal Palace, but
West Ham,
Arsenal, Tottenham,
Chelsea,
Celtic,
Fulham.
Rangers, Chelsea, Fulham.
Yeah,
big rivalry and it could be it's 50-50 whenever they play.
Yeah. It's a 42-hour drive from Toronto to Vancouver.
Yeah, no, it's like going from New York to Los Angeles.
Yeah. And they recommend going through the United States. We probably have better roads. Anyways, Vancouver 5, Montreal 0. Absolutely nothing but a red card on the stat sheet with Camacho getting sent off in the 23rd minute for just being a defender on the wrong side of the attacker and pulled him down outside the box. What the hell is wrong with Vancouver's field? Like, the weirdest bounces from these long balls are putting defenders in terrible situations, Cody. What do you guys put in the turf there?
Cork. It's not rubber.
Clearly.
It's very dry.
The field looks like it plays weird. Is that just me, Alex?
Place to play. It's a really tough place.
It's a very tough place to play.
The lighting with the dome.
I actually like the stadium because I think it's cool when the roof is open and it's a nice day in Vancouver. It's kind of like a nice little setting, but in terms of the surface, it's just atrocious.
Yeah. It's very dry. And they water it with a like a fire hose before the game, before warm-ups, before the game, and at halftime. And
they have they have that truck the
minutes it's dry.
They have the cart that drives by and has like a little PVC thing off the back of it that has like little holes in it and just like sprays water at the ground as it's driving around in circles. It's like a Zamboni for soccer.
It's
interesting.
It looks weird too, even on TV, especially now that Apple's bringing us 1080p. We can actually see what the hell's going on instead of that ESPN Plus nonsense. Fucking 480p streaming. And I've just seen this at Vancouver. Like, I think some of it's the lighting reflecting down off of the top and just the way it sees, but there's clearly an advantage. But I mean, let's be honest, like, Vancouver didn't need one. Absolutely took advantage. If anything, should have scored sooner, should have scored more, but this is a big lift for that team. Anytime you go out there and just smack someone 5-0, even with the mixed results they've had, it doesn't matter. This is going to be a huge lift for Vanny and the rest of the team, and they're going to try to push on off of it.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's their first win of the season. I think the coaching staff really needed it. From what I've been told, from what I can assume, they have had a lot of pressure on them to get this first win of the season in the league. But Montreal, from my point of view, Montreal might as well have stayed on the plane. I mean, they might have well stayed in Montreal because this was a dumpster fire of a game for them. They could have lost 7-8-9-0.
Yeah, like we said, tough place to play. Canada versus Canada, so it means something. And to come in and lay an egg is obviously not what you want. But for me, Montreal's poor start is solely based on what they've done in the offseason. They've done nothing to keep the guys around that made the team good last year. They let their coach walk without even a discussion about trying to keep him or send him to a new salary. And they haven't done anything to replace him or players they've lost. And so I think it's a testament to the organization and the fact that they're not willing to go out there and spend and try and replicate what they've done in the last season. They think it's just kind of shot in the dark. It comes from whatever it comes from, but they haven't done anything to replace its success. And so this is kind of, I say that teams will cut corners until they get caught cutting corners and they get embarrassed, and then they're going to be forced to change something. And so maybe this is the wake up call to Montreal that the front office, the ownership needs to say, hey, let's go spend some money and try and make this team competitive again.
And what's frustrating is their last result was 3-2 against Philly, right? Then they had a bye week, and then they came into this about as bad as you could coming out of a bye week too. You've had extra time with people. Yeah. You got everyone fresh. Everyone probably had a couple of days off. And now you're coming back from Vancouver and everyone's on the line because what do you do from this? It's going to be tough. They play New England away next. We'll have to see. I couldn't believe that, Cody, when you said this is their first win of the season. They lost to Real Salt Lake in the opener, lost to San Jose, then draw. This is going to help the old goal difference. So I'll tell you what.
And I think it speaks volumes to what Vancouver's been able to do with their academy players, because they brought Simon Betcher, who is the fastest player in MLS history to 5 goals through the MLS Next program.
Oh, I thought you were going to say this season. I'm like, well, it helps when you play Montreal.
No. They, I guess, promoted him. They signed him to essentially a 2-way contract last year out of necessity with injuries. He scored 1 late last year, I think in either the second to last game of the season or the last game of the season, and then has scored 4 in the first 5 or 6 games of this year.
Yeah, well, he had 2 goals and assists. Obviously made team of the match day because team of the week. It is what it is. 23-year-old.
They changed that.
Yeah, 23-year-old, obviously enjoying the freedom that he had in this game. I would say it's the same guys from Vancouver, right? You kind of expect Gressel's all over a lot of that stuff as they are in their Christmas tree formation that Vanny loves so much, the 4-3-2-1.
Yeah, it's a weird formation. There was a whole debacle about that last year because we actually started in a 5-3-2 for the first half of the season and then went to the Christmas tree because everybody wanted to play a flat back 4.
Who's everybody?
The players.
Interesting. You guys did have some huge gaps between your defenders for passing lanes. Yeah. Like your wingbacks kept getting caught too high, and then your center backs were chasing in the lanes, and they were not. It just
because we never worked on defensive shape, and they wanted us to play a 5 at the back. And everybody was like, "We don't know how to play this. Why are we doing this? Let's just play a formation that everybody knows how to play.
Stop defending. Can you focus
everybody
on
grew
scoring?
Up in It was an interesting time.
Yeah, you're
say that.
I bet. All right. Well, I mean, those are the top games of the week. Obviously, other stuff happened. I think that if you kind of look around the league and you just go, oh, well, that was surprising. I think, what was it? Oh, I've already just completely blanked it right now. I don't know. Oh, LAFC in Colorado. LAFC at Colorado 0-0. Colorado using every mile high foot they have to their advantage. Everyone kind of expecting LAFC to continue to roll and just a little bit of a stumbling block. Got to be a huge victory mentally for Colorado.
Yeah.
Clean sheet and a point against one of the top teams in the league.
Definitely.
All right. Team of the match day. because that's what we do in America. Dane St. Clair got goalkeeper of the week. Walker Zimmerman, Glesny, Mosquera from Cincy, Joswiak, Mukhtar, Aiden Morris, Zillarian, Espinoza, Betcher, and Chu. Columbus and Nashville with 2 players apiece kind of led the charge in this one. If you don't score, you don't get in. That seems to be the easiest way to get into these team of the weeks every single week.
I think that the team of the match day, as it's called now,
Audie appreciates you.
It is solely based on, it's a stats driven award if it's an award, I guess.
Yeah.
But it is solely based on goals, assists, shutouts. Or like if you're a defender and you get a shutout and you score a goal like Walker does like once every 3 games, then you're going to be on team of the week, and that's just kind of the way it goes. It's not really based on, oh wow, this player had made a lot of good plays and it's not based on that, which is fine. But the way to get on this is to score goals and assist goals and keep a shutout. That's your team of the week.
It is just kind of interesting how these things come together. I don't know if this is too personal. Do you guys get little spiffs or bonuses for making these team of the weeks or anything? So you guys don't care about it, right? You're, team first. This is annoying.
Yeah. Yeah. Very much team focused.
It has no bearing.
These are, they're nice. It's nice recognition, but it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Well, that is good to know. So to me, this is actually a media play for the league to continue to push stuff out there, to promote different players week in, week out, versus it really kind of coming down to you guys. So by the way, if you guys haven't seen it, there's a Twitter account that has worst man of the match awards. And some of the stuff people have gotten, they've gotten like coupons and they've gotten like a pizza. It is hilarious. I'll have to send you guys the link after this, but it is one of the best things ever. So we'll see. I don't think these guys are getting Audis every single week, but I think we can kind of wrap there. Anything else around the league that you guys are surprised at? I mean, Jordan Morris is continuing to run away with the goals. I
will say this is, as kind of a last point, I'll say this. I'll use that strong word. I hate that all of the games are on at the same time. I was going to ask you about that. Actually, yes. I was going to bring that up. I want to wake up on a Saturday when my game is at 7:30 or 4, and I want to watch the 1 o'clock game. And then I want to get home after my 4 o'clock game and watch one of the 5 or 6 games that's on at 7:30. And then I want to watch the late game. And then I watch the Sunday games and that occasional Viernes de Football that they used to have, the old Friday night MLSer away in Houston or something. So I want to watch as many games as possible live. I don't want to go on Apple TV the next day and oh man, should I rewatch this game? It's no, I already have to rewatch my game 2 more times. And so it's I hate how the timing is it's all in one day. It's mostly at one time based on your location or whatever. They had one game that was a 4 o'clock game or a 3 o'clock game the first couple of weeks. Now they don't do it anymore. So I guess it's a scheduling thing, but I don't know what type of scheduling issues you have when all you have is MLS. Yeah, when you're not competing with anyone else for airtime or any other sports. Yeah. So just make the games happen all day for 2 days. I think that people would appreciate that more.
I think so too. However, I think part of it might be the MLS 360 concept that they're trying to
It's their version of NFL Red Zone.
Sure. I get that. I haven't had the ability to watch that yet. And so I don't know what that experience is like. And I don't contrary to NFL Red Zone, where there's a team that's on the 10-yard line or the 20-yard line. Let's go to this game and watch it live. Yeah. Soccer is much more fluid. You can't be oh, this team's attacking now, and they're at midfield with possession of the ball, and you're okay, he's gonna kick it long, and it's gonna come back the other way. Yeah. And so you can go back and show highlights of goals or highlights of big plays or big saves or whatever. But then you're not really like bouncing around from game to game. You're just a live highlights show,
Yeah.
So it makes it kind of difficult.
Yeah, they definitely haven't figured out the balance of it yet. I've watched it a couple times. It's okay, and they got in trouble for spoiling a lot of things too, not telling people what happened, just being like, "Oh, look, goal." And you're like, "Wait, what? Come on."
Yeah.
It is tough to pick the game. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games at essentially 7:30 Eastern kickoff. Next week, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 games at 8:30, and then obviously you got 1 at 9:30, and then 2 at 10:30 for the West Coast. The last 3 of the West Coast kickoffs. I would have thought maybe, how about this? Is it better from a playing perspective because you guys have a little bit more consistency in your schedule and your pregame prep and things like that? But your point is definitely not necessarily better for the viewer because now I have to decide the best game out of 7.
You would think that, like I said, as an outlet that doesn't have to compete with other sports for airtime or time slots, that you would want a game at 1, a game at 3, 2 games at 5, a bunch of games at 7:30 prime time slot. And then you've got your 8:30 because you're in the central time zone, the 9:30 because you're in the mountain time zone, then your 10:30 West Coast. But like, you want people to have options to watch games all day. And you assume that because there's more actual time that you're broadcasting all the games anyways. It's not like you're only broadcasting X amount of games because you have this time slot to pick one. You're broadcasting every single game. And so you'd want people to have the most overall time in a day to watch games, right? The more time that you make available for people to watch, the more people are going to be watching throughout the day, right? Even if you're not a DC United fan and DC United plays at 2:00 on a Saturday, it's like, are we going to go to the bar and watch this game and have a beer? It's like, yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah. I've had that. Whether I've like been doing chores or doing other stuff early in the afternoon, I'm like, the Premier League's over. I'm like, I got to wait another 3 hours for the MLS. Right. So it's been interesting. I mean, obviously, it's first year. I signed up for MLS season pass, wanted to go all in and experience it, but it has been a bit weird. It's been different. I'm sure they have the reasons, but yeah, I think, Cody, I think Alex has a really good point that it's like, you're compressing your window so tight. There's no media blackouts. So it's not, I don't know. They're going to have to figure it out, but I will never complain that it's not an ESPN Plus. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, to be fair, I think they've done a good job of like the games that I've watched. Like when I come back from a game and I'm watching the second half of the late game that's on the West Coast, or the times that you have watched the early game, like the coverage is actually pretty good. The quality is good. I think that as it grows, as Apple, what is it, a 10-year partnership? And so as it goes on, there needs to be more competition for like who's calling the games. I don't think that we're at a point where there's, 16 or 15 sets of broadcast teams that are good enough to be making this product what we want it to be. I don't think that's been consistent enough. It's not. I honestly, there are games that I'll watch on mute and just play music or something because I don't need to listen to so-and-so who's not very good at broadcasting and doesn't have great insight. I don't need to listen to that. And I would think that as a league, you would want that to be something that's a strong suit to draw people in, to have people say, I like the way that this sounds. I like the insight that they're giving. And so I think that will take time. But I would say like the overall, like the actual product itself has been pretty good. Like there's been some good games with lots of goals.
I would agree.
The stars have been the stars. They have been running the games. Which is what you want. And so you hope that as it goes on, it just gets better.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been an interesting season, especially as this is my first time really following it. I don't know what the hell to expect every single week, but that's part of the interesting side of it. So, Alex, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Like I said, best of luck at DC. And glad you're enjoying it. Glad you're learning a lot from Rooney and the staff there. Big up on the cherry blossoms. I'll be there visiting next week. So hopefully the 70,000 people that were there have cleared out for me.
To be fair, I think the cherry blossoms might clear out for you by then too, so you might
No.
miss them anyways.
Yeah, it is what it is. This is the only time that worked. We'll see if I can sneak out and visit you guys and you take on Columbus.
Yes.
Cody, on your side of the story, I mean, what do I got to say? I mean, who do I have to pay to get a clean sheet?
You're asking the wrong person.
I just want to get
talk to my back four.
Do you just want me to like DoorDash you some donuts?
We need to stop conceding goals in the back post.
You guys have a back post dilemma. It is true.
Yes, we do. It's wide open right now.
Well,
it's tough.
Maybe make a recommendation to the coaching staff. They'd appreciate that. But we'll continue to watch you in the Orange County Oranges out there. You guys are doing great. Keep it up. All right, guys, we're going to wrap there. More stuff as always. Follow Alex, link in the description. Another game week MLS coming up soon. No more international break nonsense. Everyone's fully staffed again. So we'll be back. If you could rate us, Apple Podcast, Spotify, 5 stars goes a long way. We appreciate you. We'll be back. Take care.